This is listener-supported community radio, KAAD-LP 103.5 on your FM dial, Sonora, California, and streaming on www.kaad-lp.org. I am Wendy Ledger with the Golden Nuggets of the Motherlode, brought to you by the Sonora Writers Group and Tuolumne County Arts. Today, we have the pleasure of having Edie Cay on our program. Edie writes feminist Regency romance. Her debut, A Lady's Revenge, won the Golden Leaf Best First Book and the Next Generation Indie Book Award for romance. The next in her series, The Boxer and the Blacksmith, won the Hearts Through History Legends Award as an unpublished manuscript in 2019 and was the May Book of the Month for Discovering Diamonds. Branching out into contemporary romance, her short story, In Her Element, will be published in the anthology Friends to Lovers by Violet Gaze Press in August. Edie obtained dual BAs in creative writing and in music, and an MFA in creative writing from University of Alaska, Anchorage. She is a member of RWA, the Regency Fiction Writers, the Historical Novel Society, and is a founding member of Paper Lantern Writers. You can follow her on social media for pictures of her latest baking projects. And believe me, folks, you're gonna wanna do this with her toddler at author Edie Cay, and that's spelled Ediecay. Welcome, Edie.
Hi, thanks, Wendy. Thanks for having me.
Oh, always. So Edie, today, as I asked you, I wanted to focus on marketing because I, being a smart writer, I follow Edie on all platforms that I can. And I'm always amazed by what wonderful things you're doing. But I first wanted to talk with you about your website and how authors can use their websites to help market their books.
Sure. So I do kind of see marketing as there's a three-prong approach, in my opinion. So your website is your foundation. Your website is how people find you. And whether that's your readers or a publishing company or an agent, you need to have a landing spot. If you want to participate in conferences and book fairs and things like that, any kind of event, most of the time they want you to have some kind of website that they can go to, that they can point to, so that they have a marketing platform as well. As an indie author, you need to present yourself and position yourself as someone who can not just take from other people, but also give back. So part of your audience is a way for other authors or events or publishers or agents to connect to the readers that you already have following you. It sounds not, it sounds not as fun, but you need to be able to give and take. And that's part of your website. It's a landing page. I know other people use their website as a place for their blog, and they can have other authors come on as guest bloggers. They can do book reviews on those websites. Some, if you have a large backlist, they are an Amazon associate. So anytime you click through on their website to Amazon, then you gain another cut right there. Because not only then do you get your royalty from the back end, then you also get an Amazon associate cut for sending someone to Amazon to sell. Personally, I had a website for, over 10 years. And I recently changed it to reflect my new my new career under Edie Cay. And I keep it pretty basic. I have a news page, I have links to my books, and I have basically the awards that I've won there. And I keep it really basic because I view social media right now as an important way to get new readers. So that's the second prong. And for me, maybe the most important prong that I'm currently doing. When I have more time, I will invest more effort into the other ones. The second prong that I want to talk about is newsletter.
Okay.
So I'm sure that, Wendy, you've probably heard about newsletters from every which way. It's a really common marketing device.
I know about newsletters. I know that they're like one of the most important thing you can do, because then you have like names, you have readers, you have fans, you have community, you have, you know, people that you can personally talk to who are interested in what you have to say. But I have to admit, for some reason, they scare me, which is just seems ridiculous. I mean, spiders make sense, but newsletters, but they scare me. So
Yeah.
proceed.
Okay. Well, I am going to agree with you 100%. I'm going to say yes. They also scare me, and I also dislike doing them. I have heard from many other authors, though, that this is the number one way that they sell books. I think it's more important if you have a really large backlist, because you're selling not just one book to these people, you're selling your entire line. So authors who have, 15 to 20 books, I mean, you might be able to snag one person from an Amazon ad, but if you can get them to sign up for your mailing list, all of a sudden you've got 19 other books for them to buy. It also, for a lot of people, creates a sense of community. Like you were saying, that you feel like you're a part of the author's life in some way. However, I will say that it's been showing that millennials and younger don't sign up for newsletters. So I'm actually a Gen Xer. Are notorious non-participators, and I am also a non-participator. I don't want to join in. I don't want your newsletter. I don't want to subscribe. And it's not because I don't like you. It's just,
right.
Just, if I want to know about you, I'm going to search you out. I'm going to find you. And I dislike having a newsletter come to my email inbox.
Okay. But you have a newsletter though, right?
I do have a newsletter. Right. And so I send it out basically quarterly.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
4 times a year is really all you need to hear from me. So what I do in my newsletter is I try to make sure I have pictures of my kid, because he's super cute.
He is.
Pictures of my latest baking adventure, because sometimes they're pretty great, sometimes they're epic fails, but some of them lately have been turning out really nicely. Well, I don't generally, you're shaking your head. Well, don't put in my epic fails.
Okay. I have to tell you that I got my husband to buy us a waffle iron, and I said, Edie, she puts stuffing, like she makes stuffing things in her. Yeah, she puts stuffing in it, makes it like a waffle. Yeah. And that was like beyond him. But I thought that was like the coolest thing in the world. I was just like, let's branch out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was definitely part of the pandemic Will It Waffle crowd. So we did some tot waffles, which were delicious. And then, I just basically did a Thanksgiving leftover waffle.
Yeah, that just sounds so yummy to me. Yeah, so I would imagine that, with you, that you could do recipes.
I do include a recipe. And then down at the bottom, so I also, in my former life, I did a lot of reviews. I still do a lot of reviews. I do them mostly for the Historical Novel Society now. And I try to include 3 books that you may not have heard of before. Historical fiction that maybe you don't know about because they're not coming from large presses. They're not being published by the big 5. They don't have the big publicity behind them.
Right.
So those, and then I also try to have 3 websites that are just fun things that it's not like it's a big intellectual thing. Just something fun or pretty to look at or funny to read or something like that is just kind of like a little mental break when you need a little mental break, and nothing time consuming, because I find in other people's newsletters, I stop reading if it's this like wall of text.
Oh yeah, for sure. Even if it looks interesting to me, I'll just go like, I'll read it later, which translates to that's never going to happen.
And that's why I have like 1,500 things in my email inbox, because my read it later.
I know.
I'm going to let it get buried.
Right. Yeah. It's really true. But so that sounds good to me. Like, I think maybe I could handle like a quarterly. Yeah. And but if you're having something come out, I mean, you have special news. You win awards all the time, and you're doing things like. Do you put that in it too, or do you have special announcements, if
if I win an award, I mean, obviously I blast social media with it. And then I wait for the next quarter for announcing it in the newsletter, because that's kind of a nice thing and it kind of keeps it in a couple places.
Yeah.
And so when I have something coming out, then I will do a special blast to make sure that everybody knows, hey, tomorrow's the day, or a week from today is the day, or something like that, so that they can keep up on it. So really that kind of leads me to social media.
Right.
This feels like the point where like Law and Order gets the like boom, boom. This is
love that
important stuff. So on social media, you have Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Goodreads. There's so many places to connect with people, and they each do different things. And I think this is really where you need to figure out your demographic and then target that platform. So for instance, I am not on TikTok because there is a book talk is what they call it.
I've recently heard of that, and I'm almost as afraid of that as I am newsletters, maybe even more so. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I'm terrified of TikTok. No, just hands down, no thanks. I mean, don't get me wrong. I enjoy going on TikTok and watching other people's videos, but I'm not going to sing and dance for you. I'm just not going to do it.
No, that's just for the cats and my husband. Yeah.
Yeah. I am very goofy and I do make up songs. Generally, they're about putting on your underpants the correct way or making sure the applesauce goes in your mouth and not your head.
That's demographics again. Yeah.
Again, demographic. It's all about your target audience. But I have found that I enjoy using Instagram. And so that is where I focus my work. So Facebook is generally Gen X and older. Instagram is basically millennials, and Gen Z is TikTok. And Twitter is actually really good on publishing, just across the board. It really is. So it really matters finding your people on all these platforms. So on Instagram, they call it Bookstagram, and you can connect with other reviewers, authors, readers, all sorts of things. And of course, the hashtag you use there is Bookstagram, among others. It's also been a place that has been really fun to find reviewers, people who have a large following. I really just cold call them. I just, message them and say, hey, this is who I am. This is my new book. It's coming out on this date. Would you be interested? Most of the time they want a hard copy because it photographs much better. So you do have extra costs that way in getting those reviews out, but it can help.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, and that for people, is just make sure you're connecting. You look at their feed and make sure that their genre and stuff is connected with your book. Yeah. I
mean, you don't want to send, if you write romance and you find a reviewer who reviews only horror, skip that one. It's a waste of everyone's time. And you look like an idiot for not doing your homework. And there are people, I would really advise against authors who just connect with a new person and then immediately DM them with a wall of text about their latest stuff. And
it doesn't feel good.
No, it really doesn't. I don't like it, because then you want to be like, oh yeah, well, this is what I'm doing. So like, you're trying to get me to buy your book, buy my book.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, forming actual relationships. And that's been one of the things that's really fun on Instagram for me anyway, is forming actual relationships with these people, having real conversations. It's lovely, and I don't know these people, but I comment on their posts. I see their kids. I know what the inside of their house looks like.
It's really true. Okay, now I have to ask you something that I've seen on Instagram lately, but I haven't ventured further in knowing. Do you do reels?
Ooh, yeah. Reels? I do. Not often. Reels are like their own little art form. And I generally do them about books. When I had a giveaway, I did a reel of packing up the package itself. So you could see me putting the books in and making it pretty and things like that. You can add background music and effects and text and all sorts of things. So like I've done a shelfie.
Oh, yeah.
Where you take pictures of your
Yeah.
bookshelf. I did a real shelfie. Things like that. I've actually recently redone my bookcases and I'm awfully proud of them. So I was going to do another shelfie. I've been waiting on my next generation indie medal. It's supposed to be coming in the mail.
You're gonna have to have like a trophy case.
I know. I've got one. I've got my top there. Is my certificate, my trophy. I'm gonna keep building that. But yeah, so I do reels. There is this whole fear right now because Instagram just put out their new algorithms, and basically everyone's afraid that Instagram is trying to be TikTok light because they're really emphasizing video content as opposed to, still photo content. I don't know one way or the other, really. They've been emphasizing reels for the last year anyway. So I don't know how much that's going to change. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. That's like the constant, right? That everything's always going to be changing.
Everything changes. And that's the hard part of social media is keeping on top of it. And I think that's why Twitter is so popular for publishing, is because it's just written. You don't need to have a picture. You don't need to have a video. You can just connect with people based on a hashtag and then off you go.
That's true.
And I have found that when I connect with people on Twitter, like when I have someone who finds my books of their own accord organically, I get a big boost when someone else posts about my book. Like when someone says, oh, hey, you know what? This book is like this book. And I just found this new author, Edie Cay, and her books look like that. I get like 7 new sales that day because someone on Twitter found me.
Yeah, so that is really awesome. All right, so let's pause with the marketing talk for a moment.
Oh,
and let's take off our marketing hats. Mine looks like a dunce cap, actually, but I'm trying. And Edie, would you like to read for us, please?
Yes. So, okay. So this is the opening to my next book, which will be out February 1st, because that's kind of my day for historical fiction. And this is called,
is it part of the series? Is it part of the series that you're doing?
Yes. So my first 2 books, you didn't really need to read the other one to know what's going on. A Lady's Revenge was first, then Boxer and the Blacksmith, but you could read either one as a standalone and it was okay. This third one, A Lady's Finder, is the first one that you really do need to have read the other 2. So this really is genuinely in the series. You need to know because there's so much family story. So A Lady's Finder is about the protagonist of the first book, A Lady's Revenge. It's her younger sister. So it is her love story. And this is a new stretch for me because I really wanted to write this as a romantic comedy, and I am probably failing miserably because I don't know if I'm really a romantic comedy writer. So it might just be romantically amusing. not a comedy.
It's so good. It's so good that a stretch. It's so good to risk and just to stretch your writer boundaries. And
Well, all right. So this is chapter 1, and we're in London, 1818. If Agnes were a man, a befrilled and lacy-capped aunt would sit in the corner for every exchange in the Franklins' artfully curated drawing room. As it stood, with Agnes being another unmarried miss from the ton, she was considered as dangerous as a titmouse. And in this, somewhat disappointingly, society was absolutely correct. But she felt comfortable here in Miss Mary Franklin's drawing room, almost as comfortable as she felt in her own. So when she bustled in, her mind sparkling with the anticipation of the visit, the arrangements for her women's charity collection, she didn't notice Mary Franklin's troubled expression. Had she been more aware, less comfortable on the new sofa, with its beautiful silk pillows in a shade so new that half the ton was tearing their collective hair out trying to obtain it, Agnes would have noticed that Mary Franklin couldn't even look at her. And after a year, wasn't that something? A year of correspondence and outings, of teas, of traipsing unnoticed through ballrooms and afternoon garden parties, a year of hand-holding and stolen kisses, a year of passionate words that no one ever bothered to peruse or steal or notice. Because how much trouble could Lady Agnes be? Even at her impressive height, it was hard to remember she was in the room. But Mary was her north. It was hard not to point towards her, focus on her, with her sprinkle of dark freckles on her dark skin, the hair that curled and curled and curled endlessly around Agnes's fingers, skin that took on the soaps her mother bought, filled with cloves and lavender and scents that seemed as heady as goblets of ruby red port. Not that Agnes would know. While even Agnes wasn't quite sure what to call their very close friendship, which was more potent than any friendship she'd ever experienced, it didn't have the gravitas of an engagement. It didn't have the urgency of John Arthur's courtship of her sister. It was rather comfortable, actually, which is why Agnes held the belief that this plump and easy love between them would last until her dying breath. Just a reminder, Agnes started, as she started most visits with everyone, I will be by in the morning to pick up this week's linens for the women's home, unless you think your household will not produce anymore, in which case I can take them with me today. They're ready in a hamper by the door, Mary said, facing the window, her back to Agnes. Odd to have such a cold reception. Mary typically greeted her with an embrace, or at least a smile that could warm Siberia. Excellent. Then, shall we discuss the upcoming summer exhibition? I can't believe it's been a year already. Would you like to attend the first weekend? It can be a bit of a crush, but sometimes that's the fun of it, to be in and amongst so many people, seeing all of the paintings for the first time together. No, thank you. Second weekend, then, Agnes asked. Her gloves looked a bit dirty. Were they truly dirty, or was Agnes just being particular? Sometimes she could be particular, which not everyone appreciated. It was challenging to overlook little things like these, even as her mother advised her to allow trivial items to pass through her notice, saving energy for bigger projects. I said no thank you, Mary repeated. Her voice sounded dull, like a chafing dish with a gleam of fat hardened and cooled in the bottom. Agnes looked up, finally noting Mary's posture, her voice, the coolness of the room. Oh. There was no tea tray laid out with snacks and a steaming pot. There were no baskets of embroidery at the ready, or even a book chosen carefully for their appointment. Every bit of closeness they'd stolen over the last year was erased from the scene. Mary? A deep pit formed in her stomach. Dread filled her so completely she wasn't sure if it hadn't sprung out of her fingertips. I have good news. Mary's voice was still and flat. Must be quite the thing, Agnes quipped, still cataloging the absence of creature comforts. Mary did not appear to be in today to receive visitors. I wanted to be the first to let you know that I am engaged. Mary turned finally, her face drawn, but her eyes set and cold. I beg your pardon. Agnes' mouth dried. Upon closer inspection, Agnes could detect a distinct puffiness around Mary's eyes. So she had cried, just not recently. I'm quite overjoyed at my luck. Engaged to be married. Yes, what other kind of engagement would there be? Mary twisted a handkerchief in her hands before stuffing it up her sleeve. Her jaw flexed before she pulled herself up. One might engage in all sorts of behavior. For instance, Mary's shoulders slumped again. Agnes, please don't make this harder. I'm sure I don't know what you're talking about. The pit was replaced with stone, pinning Agnes to the fashionable sofa. The clock on the mantel ticked away. Her eyes began to blink in time with the second hand. The silence was horrid. Did Agnes prefer to escape or prefer to stay? It didn't matter. Her feet were leaden. His name is Sir James Carraway. He's from Hampshire, and he's a nice man. Mary took on a false lightness. She'd been practicing lines to seem excited about her betrothed. Once, Agnes had taken exercise with her sister and Miss Abbott, the lady boxer. She watched as Lydia struck Miss Abbott as directed, and when it came time for Agnes to do the same, she couldn't bring herself to even try to throw a punch. All she could think of was how it felt to be hit, to want to be hit. And in this moment, she felt as if Mary had hit her square in the chest. "Oh," was all Agnes could bring herself to say. Sir James Caraway was a man who could marry a woman and call her his own, make her take his name, erase her, erase the Mary Franklin who sighed Agnes's name as if calling out to a saint. "It will be announced at the Reedleys' ball tomorrow night. I wanted to tell you myself." Mary didn't cross the room. Mary didn't take her hands or plead for understanding. All Agnes could think of was the feel of Mary's hair tangled in her fingers, or what the freckles on her nose looked like close up. They were the most perfect and particular arrangement of beauty marks. She regularly told Mary that she was lucky to have so many. A lump stuck in Agnes's throat. What would John Arthur have done had Lydia announced such a thing? He would have struck on, confident. "And how will this affect me exactly?" Mary stared at her, and had she had an hour less of finishing classes, her mouth would be hanging open. But Mary Franklin was her mother's daughter, refined, beautiful, graceful at all costs. The kind of woman that any man would want. Any man. Any woman. Agnes charged on, suddenly feeling determined. "Because I fail to see why our friendship must change. Surely your address will, and thus you will not be so convenient to visit as you have been. But our..." And it was here that Agnes faltered. For what to call their time together? Mary shook her head slowly, as if trying to wake herself from a nightmare. "Agnes, I cannot go forward with this when I'm married. I cannot." "Why not?" Agnes asked. Her mouth took control, leaving her heart weeping and her brain stopped in its tracks. And her mouth was quite sick of euphemisms and half-truths. "For it isn't as if I can make you pregnant." And now Mary's mouth did hang open. Her cheeks darkened, a blush that Agnes had never seen before. Mary's dark complexion kept her seeming more constant than Agnes's, whose fair skin had a propensity to flush with every eye blink. But now Mary's eyes filled with tears, and she sank into a chair near the window. "Agnes." "That was perhaps the most vulgar thing I've ever said aloud," Agnes said, her brain finally catching up to her. It was hard to feel more of an oaf than she did almost every day of her life, being taller than most and clumsy to top it all, but she had managed to outdo even herself.
It's wonderful, Edie. It's just terrific. But we're gonna have to go now.
Yeah.
No, but it's wonderful. I loved it so much. And I wanted to thank you for being here today and to thank our sponsors, Sonora Writers Group and Tuolumne County Arts, and to the kind folks at KAAD-LP 103.5, streaming at KAAD-LP.org. Bye, everybody. Thanks again, Edie.
Thanks.